Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto Vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
The one thing he could never understand about his brother was the love he felt for his family. Tobirama was single and he was proud of it. But every now and then, I thought about what it would be like to have a family of my own. And that's where it all starts. Tobirama looked with abstract horror at his personal guard Ambu, the only kunoichi on the team, to be exact. "What?" he asked. "I'm pregnant," she said. He ran his hands through his hair, trying to think of how he would cope with the situation. I knew how it had happened, of course. One too many drinks, a fierce fight and kisses led to what had happened. Even with the alcohol, I remembered it vividly. "If it's that much trouble, then I will abort," she said, and started to leave the room. She had put him out of her thoughts. Wait a minute. Her hand was on the doorknob when he called her. She turned and saw him approaching. "You're not having an abortion." Even if I think I'm not ready for something like this, a part of me is excited and wants this to end. I've always wanted to be a father. Who knows, maybe I like being one. The kunoichi had tears coming out of her mask. She was crying with relief to be able to keep the child. He moved the mask and kissed his Okage. 8 months later, "I'll kill you for doing this to me, you son of a bitch. I don't care if you're my Okage, I'm going to castrate you," shouted the lover of Nidame. "Come on, honey, push. You're almost there," Tobirama said, trying to ignore her lover crushing her hand. "Shut up. You have no idea, Arya." She was interrupted when she suffered more contractions. A couple more pushes later, and the room was filled with the crying of a newborn. The nurse took the child, cut the umbilical cord, and wrapped him in a blanket. He delivered the newborn to the Nidame. He took his son with slightly trembling hands. "Look, honey. Our son," she said with a voice full of happiness. He handed it to her as she stretched out her tired arms to receive her son. "I am so happy," she said in a tired voice. "He looks just like you," she continued. Indeed, the child looked alike. He had the Nirame's hairstyle, although it seemed more pointed, 4 triangles on his face, 2 on each cheek, and his father's tanned complexion. The only thing he seemed to have inherited from his mother were a pair of golden yellow eyes and whitish blue hair. "What do we call it?" Tobirama asked. His lover, Yukifuri, looked at his son. "Naruto?" "His name is Naruto," he said firmly. "A good name," said the Nidame, before looking at his mistress and noticing that she was paler than a few moments ago. "Honey?" he asked. Her heart monitor turned off as she closed her eyes, still hugging little Naruto, who had started crying. Sensing that something was wrong with his mother. "Nurse. Doctor. Whoever wants, we need help," the Nidame shouted while taking Naruto. The nurse and doctors immediately entered, trying to save the one they believed to be Nidame's secret wife. 10 minutes later, Tobirama received the news. Her lover, whom she was really going to propose to, Yukifuri, had passed away. For the next few days, he was heartbroken. The only thing keeping him going was his son. "Easy, Naruto," he said, "Daddy is here. And he's not leaving anytime soon." 14 years later, Naruto had become a handsome young man. He wore armor similar to his father's, with fur included. The only difference was the color scheme. While his father's was pale blue, Naruto's had crashing waves and falling snow. It was so well integrated into the armor that when she walked it seemed to move. His father spent as much time raising him as he did in his office. He started teaching Naruto as soon as he learned to walk correctly. At an early age, they discovered that Naruto had 3 affinities. A high affinity with water, like his father's. A high affinity with the earth, which made the wood element Mokuto possible, and a high affinity with wind. It was after this that Tobirama decided to tell his son about his mother. Flashback scene. Naruto stood in front of his father. He was just 6 years old, and his training in the elements was just beginning. He was there because his father had told him that he had something to tell him. "Dad," he asked. Naruto started his father. "I think it's time for you to meet your mom." Naruto opened his eyes wide when he heard this. She had always wondered who her mother was. Your mother was a wonderful woman and a great kunoichi. He was part of my personal guard. He loved his loved ones and defended them with all his might. He believed that those you love are valuable, and only by protecting those you love will you become truly strong. He had white hair that fell into blue, golden eyes like yours, a nice nose, full lips, a big heart, and an cough just as big. He stopped and looked at his son for a moment before he realized what he was doing. Anyway, he quickly said, "Your mother was a wonderful person. And if it wasn't for you, I would never have noticed. I appreciate it. She could be as kind to her friends as she was cold to her enemies. You see, son, she was not a native of Inokuni, country of fire, but of the Yuki clan of Kirinibla. She came here after Kiri banished her for showing compassion to her enemies when they couldn't fight. She was found almost starved to death at the gates. We took her and gave her a second chance. He did his best to reward us for our kindness and eventually became one of my guards. Now, what you need to understand is the Yuki clan. They had a Kik and Genka and blood limit that granted those who woke him up the ability to use ice. Your mother could, as I think you can too. You also have the ability to unlock Makuten as Isirama ni, but you will have to work hard. Don't accept handouts or you'll never get strong. These are your mother's beliefs and I want you to follow them, but don't imitate them, or you might get lost. Do you understand?" Naruto nodded. "Edo-san." Tobirama smiled and ruffled Naruto's hair. End of the flashback. As Naruto got older, he learned and trained until his mind and body ached. He had Yoden, Ice Element, and Makuten, although the latter was known only to Naruto and his father. Naruto had unlocked Makuten when he was almost hit by one of his father's moves by accident. And he unlocked the Ioden when he went with his father to a meeting with the Nidaime Reikikage, Second Lightning Shadow, about a peace treaty. They were attacked by Kinkaku and Hinkaku, the Gold and Silver brothers, when they attempted a coup. Naruto confronted both of them and fought them for 3 minutes before being defeated. Normally, this is not a long time, but when a second can change a battle and both of them were cage level or higher, it was quite impressive. He had earned their respect and they had given him 2 of their weapons. One of each. Kinkaku had given him the 7-star sword Shichise Ken, and Hinkaku had given him the Crimson Gourd Benizago, after his coup failed. Both weapons had shrunk to accommodate their size. Only recently was he able to handle both at the same time. He had even taken over as a substitute sensei for his father's team when the latter was overwhelmed by work. I saw promise in everything, but there was something strange with Omura and Koru. They seemed almost fanatical that Konoha was the best and Ruzan almost became like them, but he took care of that with a kick in the butt. His father has said that by himself, Naruto is Ambu level, and with his weapons and lineage, he could take the hat. Although Naruto saw little interest in him after watching an entire day at the office. Now we see Naruto standing at his family's training camp, drawing something on the ground. From below, it looked like a bunch of doodles everywhere. But from the air, or more specifically, from the balcony on the 3rd floor of the house, it looked like a finely drawn water dragon, coiling on itself. It was a great seal that Naruto had created from his studies at Mitobakan. It was an experimental label, and even the theory is, at best, unstable. He said what he would do is seal a living person in ecstasy until his release. It would also allow the seal to absorb chakra from the air to maintain the seal and slowly expand its own chakra. What makes it even better is that it also allows the sealer to hear what's going on outside the seal. He was created to seal one of his own and send him to an enemy fortress before being recovered to transmit everything he learned. The First Shinobi World War was in full swing and Konoha needed an advantage. Naruto had just finished when he saw his father coming out. "Are you sure you're using yourself, Naruto?" His understandably fearful father asked. "Yes, Tuzan." "Don't worry, I'm too stubborn to die," Naruto said. His father smiled and nodded before handing his son the scroll, not unsealed, to which the seal will be transferred. He hugged Naruto and left the seal. Naruto was going through the extensive set of hand seals when a Kumo shinobi came out from among the trees. "He dies," the man shouted. Tobirama reacted by throwing a cradle and impaling it on the man's brain, but it was too late. The seal was activated, and the man had erased a couple of lines. The seal flashed, Naruto stared at Tobirama, and everything turned white. A while later, Tobirama woke up in the hospital room, reserved for the Okage and his family. What happened? He asked without asking anyone. The door opened, and Mito Uzumaki entered. His face was downcast. It didn't bode well, whatever I said to him. I knew that much. I've only seen that face twice. The first when Madara deserted, and the second when Esirama died. What's the matter? He asked. Tobi-kun, you should get more rest. I'm going to, no. I know that face. Tell me what's wrong with you. I need to know, he said firmly. She looked down and burst into tears. Naruto is gone, he said. The world seemed to stop. What? He exhaled. When Kumo's shinobi attacked, it scratched the ground where one of the lines was. He erased that part and altered the integrity of the seal, causing it to implode. I'm sorry, really, she said. Tobirama looked down, tears streaming down his face. Is there anything left? He asked. She hesitated before nodding. She came up to him and handed him an unsealed scroll and a handkerchief with the symbol of the leaf embroidered on it. Naruto had never liked extra days, so he had a specially designed scarf to wear on his head or to cover up. Cover your mouth and nose. Tobirama thanked him as he left. After that day, he gave himself up to his work to escape the pain. But he always had the nagging suspicion, rather a feeling, that Naruto was still alive, although he only believed that it was an illusion. He never knew that Naruto was alive and well, sealed inside the scroll. It was a mixture of bad and good luck that made it work. He achieved what he wanted in a different way. Instead of being in a pocket dimension connected to the scroll, it was sealed in a plain white area. The problem was that no one could look at the scroll. He walked without crying. And as no one was willing to destroy him, he and his handkerchief were sealed together in the forbidden scroll of seals. During all that time, Naruto trained inside what he has begun to call limbo, without ever getting old. Without fully knowing what has happened or how much time will pass. 60 years later, a young blonde girl with 2 pigtails and a neon orange jumpsuit, about 12 years old, was jumping between the trees with the forbidden scroll on her back. It was Natsumi Uzumaki, and she had just stolen the forbidden scroll to pass her makeup exam. He just had to steal it, learn one of his jutsus, show it to his sense, and Mizuki would pass. Easy peasy. Security was lax. The Okage had left for some reason, and being ignored by the secretary and the Embu in the tower made it even easier. He landed in the designated area and unrolled the scroll. Shadow clones. Damn it. Of course it would be my worst subject. He sighed. I think I'll get this over with already, she told herself. 2 hours later, Natsumi was lying on the floor, panting and with a smile on her face. I had managed to complete the box. A sin. He took a deep breath and decided to rummage through the scroll to see if he could find anything else. He looked at it until he almost got to the end. Oh shit. Is that all? He wondered. That's when it came to the end. There was an image of what looked like a water dragon curled up on itself. There was one warning he ignored. It was a stamp containing items from a highly respected person and should be left alone. He had read up to the respected person part and stopped. He touched the seal to open it, but nothing happened. He frowned and tried again. When nothing happened, he remembered the only time there was talk of sealing. What did Iruka-sensei say? He thought. To activate some seals, you have to channel chakra, Iruka said. Nodding to herself, she touched the seal again and channeled chakra. There was a puff, some smoke, and the sound of an object falling to the ground. He coughed and waved his hand to disperse the smoke. When he left, he found another scroll with a blue handkerchief around it. He picked it up, unwrapped the handkerchief, and unrolled the parchment. This one also had a stamp on it. He shrugged and added more chakra to see what it contained. There was another explosion, more smoke she feared for a second, being a passive smoker, and a thud. He waited for the smoke to clear, and, when it did, he felt an atomic robot. There, lying on the ground, was Naruto Yuki Senju, although she did not know it. He was unconscious. He made sure he was asleep and not dead, just in case. He had started running his fingers through her hair, enjoying its softness. She was taken out of her thoughts when Iruka entered the clearing. "Nazumi? What do you think you're doing?" he screamed. "Kier." She screamed in fright. "Oh, it's just you, Iruka-sensei. You almost gave me a heart attack. Besides, I'm here for the makeup exam." Iruka was startled to hear what he said. "Makeup exam?" He wondered aloud. Well, it looks like he's been training, he thought. And so it was, with her hair a little disheveled, her scratches and her dirt stains. "Natsumi-chan, what are you talking about? There is no makeup exam." "Of course I do. Mizuki-sensei told me everything. Now do you want to see my new jutsu?" she said. "Mizuki?" he asked before the sound of the wind cutting was heard. Iruka knew that sound well. He lunged in front of Natsumi as several shuriken were rammed into his back. Gah! He reeled from the unexpected pain. He turned around and saw Mizuki standing there, spinning a shuriken smokes. "I didn't expect to see you here, Iruka. It's a pity, if you had taken care of your business, you wouldn't have died." "Mizuki, why are you doing this?" Iruka shouted in confusion. Mizuki laughed. "Isn't it obvious? Kill the QB bitch and get power. Is there any other reason?" Iruka couldn't believe it. His best friend betrayed his village and his friendship. Worse still, he took advantage of a young man's need for recognition by using him to get what he wanted and leaving him with the guilt. "Now do me a favor and die," the traitor shouted at the end. Iruka closed his eyes, waiting for the end. Seeing that nothing was happening after a few seconds, he opened his eyes and saw a person in armor holding the shuriken through the hole. And yawning. Everyone was stunned. Natsumi, because she was sure she was offside, Iruka and Mizuki because they didn't notice. The newest one in this fiasco slammed his jaw shut and rubbed his eyes to shake off the sleep. He quickly evaded the situation and came to his own conclusion. "Let me guess," he started. "Someone got full of power, used another, and now the decisive clash has come." As no one moved for the first few seconds, he asked, "Am I right?" Mizuki recovered first and scoffed. "Why are you helping her?" he asked, pointing at Natsumi. Naruto looked at him strangely. "Is there any reason why I shouldn't?" he asked. Mizuki laughed at this turn of events. "So you don't know? Well, then I guess I'll do my job and teach you." Iruka understood right away. Mizuki, no. They ignored him. 12 years ago, the great Kubino Kitsune nine-tailed fox attacked Konoha. We tried with all our might, but nothing worked. It was then that the Yondaime appeared on the battlefield and fought the demon. But despite what they tell the children, the Yondaime could not kill the fox. No one could, so he sealed it in a newborn girl. The only baby born that night. He pointed at Natsumi. You are the Kubino Kitsune, sealed by our beloved Yondaime. He weakened you by putting you in a human body so we could finish what we started. But the damn Sandaime was manipulated by your illusions and has forbidden anyone to hurt you. But not tonight. I'll finish what the room started and I'll kill you, die. In the end, he threw his last smoke shuriken at Natsumi, who was paralyzed by what he revealed. Iruka was about to take the hit for her, when Naruto intercepted him again. "That's enough. Apparently, you should have studied stamps if you really believed what you just said. But I see that you will not be dissuaded from your beliefs, so I will put an end to this charade," he said firmly. Before Mizuki could tease him about how to end this, Naruto disappeared and reappeared behind him with the smoke shuriken folded up and sticking it into his sternum. His body fell and Naruto jumped. Now it began. "I think we need introductions. I guess it's time to introduce myself," Naruto said. Natsumi and Iruka were still in shock about what happened. "Hello?" Naruto asked. "It's like they've never seen anything like this. What the hell happened while I was gone?" he thought. He didn't have much time to reflect when an N appeared, obviously a woman, wearing a cat Neko mask. All eyes fell on her. She observed those who had sent for her and noticed that Mizuki was dead, with a shuriken fuma going through him. He turned to Iruka, as he was the highest-ranking person he knew in the field. "What? Iruka Umino, what happened?" he asked. Iruka told him what he had seen and heard after arriving. Neko nodded, and ordered two of his subordinates to come out from among the trees. Tora, Tiger, takes Yumanozen to the hospital to have his wounds treated. Evi Snake, take the forbidden scroll and go to the tower. I will take these two to the court for trial. They both nodded and did their homework. She put her hands on the two children and went with Shunsin to the Okage tower. They arrived to see Evi hand the scroll to Okage, who nodded in appreciation. He turned to look at the newcomers. Neko had no expression at all thanks to the mask. Natsumi was nervous and angry, but it was the newcomer who caught her attention the most. He had a horrified expression on his face. "Can I help you, young man?" he asked. "Iru-chan, why are you so old?" the young man asked. Neko choked with laughter, Natsumi burst out laughing, and Irisan got annoyed by what they called him. But before he could refute, he stopped to think. "Iru-chan. Only Tobirama-sensei called me that. He and his." "No. It couldn't be possible. Naruto-sensei." Naruto exclaimed with a smile. "Well, it's good to see that your age hasn't affected you, Iru-chan." "Now." Natsumi interrupted him. "Wait a minute. Dude, how do you know Naruto?" he asked at the end, to receive an assent. Irisan sighed and lit his pipe. "A long time ago, when I was just starting out as a genin, my sensei was the Nidame Okage, Tobirama Senju. What no one knows, or rather does not remember, is that he has a son, Naruto-kun. He was even a sensei of my team when Tobirama-sensei was too busy with his duties as an Okage. He was powerful. There is no other word to describe it. At the age of 10, he could face most of our Zambu. At the age of 11, he confronted and restrained the Dorado and Silvery brothers for 3 minutes, earning their respect. By 12, he had mastered water release and was an expert at ice release. At 14, she was an unwavering force. He beat me every time he thought I had gotten too big for my pants. I think I still have the scars to prove it. He disappeared, believing him dead, when he attempted an experimental seal that was ruined by the surprise attack of a Kumo shinobi. No one knows the details, but after that, Tobirama-sensei shrank into himself, before regaining his luster a year and a half later. Saying that you were still alive. To be honest, how did you survive? In fact, how come they are the same age? Naruto smiled during the explanation, secretly laughed at his teaching methods, felt disappointed by his father, and finally gave a slight smile. He took the time to explain what happened, but omitted to mention that he heard everything that was within an audible distance of the scroll, and that he has continued to train until he reaches a chakra level probably equivalent to that of the Zambi. Irisan leaned back and thought, "Do you know?" Naruto said, "What has to happen, right?" Irisan looked at him curiously. "Remember, even with all my power and abilities, I was still a genin. And now this one," he pointed to Natsumi. "She just became a genin, so I suggest you put us on the same team." "Understood." Irisan was going to refute him, but he caught the look in Naruto's eyes. It was the look he had only seen when he was about to get beaten up. "Give me one good reason why Natsumi should become a genius." Naruto immediately says, "From what you've told me, the one I killed, Mizuki, was one of his teachers, and he used her as a pawn in his plan to get the scroll. It seemed to me that I needed Natsumi-chan to fail first, so that she would be willing to do almost anything to become a genius. I wouldn't be surprised if he had rigged his exam to make him fail. Tell me what the graduation exam is and I'll point you to where I might have attacked him." He listened intently as the graduation exam was explained to him, without altering his stoic expression. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "What the hell? How the hell does knowing what Asiramaji's Makudans do affect being a ninja? And how the hell does your graduation come down to 3 jutsus? It looks like you train barely trained tour guides. You take kids, give them the minimum training, and then throw them out into the world without telling them. Who the hell is in charge of the curriculum?" "The council is," said the third. Naruto looked at him shocked. "Why is that? Why do civilians take care of shinobi affairs? Why are they in charge of a ninja school? What were you thinking about?" Irisan lowered his gaze as he read what he was saying, because he knew it was true. After the Kyugi attack, the council took advantage of the short time between the death of the fourth and my restitution. to pass laws that would give them more power. By the time I returned to office, it was too late. Naruto stared at him, and then said of begging them, "Don't look at me like that. You should know that the council cannot pass any law without the approval of the Hokage. Your word is law. They are only there to advise you, not to govern you or to be by your side. It's obvious that you've mellowed over the years." Irison looked at him for a second before banging his head on the desk. "Ambo," he shouted, his head still firmly resting on the desk. "Call a council meeting. Tell them they have 10 minutes or they leave the council immediately." The Ambus saluted and went to look for their managers. 10 minutes later, council meeting room. The room was bustling with the various talks of the councillors. Everyone was wearing different nightwear because of how late it was and how quickly they were summoned. The Hokage entered with his lighted pipe and a burning look. He ignored them all until he sat down in his chair. Once they were settled, he put down his pipe and silenced everyone with a chakra discharge. When he was sure that everyone was settled, he opened the room. "Excuse me, Irus," Omura said before being silenced by a burst of ki. "For you, I'm Okage-sama, do you understand?" Omura nodded before rectifying her mistake. "Excuse me, Okage-sama, but what are we here for?" The third leaned back in his chair with a smile that promised pain. "I'm glad you asked. I have noticed that some people have abused their power. And that's why I've come to rectify that mistake. All the laws passed between the attack of the Kyuubi and my restitution are null and void. Anything to do with shinobi will not be influenced by civilians. Civilians will no longer be able to pass laws without my approval. And finally, my advisors will be, as has been said, advisors. They will no longer be able to vote on issues." This caused quite an uproar. Several shouts and obscenities were heard throughout the room. Irison watched as the room turned into chaos. Finally, annoyed, he fired again. "Suki," silencing everyone. "Okage-sama, you can't do that. Who has told you such lies?" Koru shouted. Sato turned between his teeth. "Of course I can. The only one with more power than mine is the daimyo. And as for who reminded me, well, I'd rather he introduce himself." The doors opened wide, and Naruto walked in with Natsumi wrapped around his arm. She was always afraid of the council because of their constant attempts to kill or imprison her. "Who do you think you are? You should know what your place is. And why are you holding that bitch by the arm?" shouted a pink-haired woman from the civil council. Naruto looked at them impassively before speaking. "I don't think you have the floor, Mistress Sanzora." Tsume had to clench his fist to keep from laughing, while the other clan chiefs chuckled or tried to restrain themselves. The pink-haired woman turned red. She was about to scream at him, but he stopped her when the third released Masuki. "It's a pleasure to introduce you to Naruto Senju." That one sentence made everyone shut up. A real Senju was there. And best of all, he was young and impressionable. This was his chance to move up in life, to move up socially. They just had to convince him to marry one of their daughters. This was the thought shared by everyone, even the clan chiefs. They may have all been friends, but they still wished their clans were even bigger. "If what you say is true," said a one-eyed, one-armed man, wrapped up like a monkey, "I propose that he be included in the Clan Restoration Act. Let's go vote. Is everyone in favor?" He raised his hand like almost everyone else. The only one who didn't was the third. Motion passed. "Now, let's see who I'll pair him up with." The man was interrupted when the third one, once again, unfolded his chakra. "I have to keep doing this, huh? Because, let me tell you, it's not easy when I get ignored every 5 seconds. Are you done?" "Right. Well, that's too bad. If I remember correctly, I was left in charge of all matters related to Senju after Tsunade left. So the decision is not up to any of you. And my decision is for Naruto to decide." Everyone stared at him for his outburst. Everyone was surprised that he denied such a thing. Don't you realize that they need more Senju? Konoha as a whole has lost almost all of its power with the loss of the Senju and, recently, the Uchiha. Only to Uchiha Mikoto and her younger brother were left after Itachi died. Mikoto wasn't there because everyone had too scared to wake her up. The last bastard who woke her up turned into a woman. There was applause, and everyone turned their attention to Naruto. Well said. And as for my decision, I'll make it later. I'm too young to make such a decision right now. Maybe later I will accept it, but for now, my answer is no. Senju-sama started the dangerous one, you must understand. More Senju is needed. With the loss of the Uchiha in recent years, and only one remaining, infertile, Senju makes him the ideal candidate. To return us to glory. Besides, I shouldn't be walking around with that thing, it's inappropriate. I'm sure he knows what he's hiding. Natsumi was feeling dejected at the thought of losing her new friend. I know, Naruto said. And I don't care. Obviously, his intelligence is dangerously low if they think he's an imposing fox with 9 tails. Do any of you see a single tail? And what if it's bigger than the monument? Are you releasing large amounts of yokai? Right. Then shut up. I am very disappointed with the way things are. Esirama-sama and Tobirama-sama would be ashamed of how much this village has fallen. The only thing that could make things worse would be if she had been physically hurt. Natsumi's face shone with happiness, while the clan chiefs felt dejected by her words. They may not have ignored her, but they didn't help her either. The civilians were furious, but they tried to avoid rushing, or risking their chances of conquering it with their respective daughters. The elderly stoic were sweating inside. They had just realized who it was that was in front of them. Also the cute crippled man, I dance. He was cursing because he knew that all the plans and conspiracies to seize the Senju heir would be foolhardy. And if he had become interested in Kyugi's Hinshiriki, it would be out of his reach. However, he thought, it may not necessarily be something bad. If he somehow unlocks the Makuten and befriends her, I won't have to worry about her turning on us. True, it will be out of my reach, but this would be better for the sake of Konoha. That, and that I'm not looking forward to another beating like the one he gave me all those years ago. All right, said Danzo, they won't force you to take part in the fray, nor would I dream of refusing to associate with whomever you choose. Everyone was startled. The clan chiefs and the Okage, because they believed he would fight tooth and nail to get the Senju heir. The civilians and the elderly, because he surrendered so easily. Naruto simply nodded. Very well, said the third, still looking at his rival. Naruto and Natsumi have become geniuses. Naruto, because he helped to expel a traitor, and Natsumi, because I have found evidence that their exams and grades were manipulated. Come to the academy in a week for the team classification. Naruto nodded, and Natsumi smiled beaming, and then the two of them left. After the departure of the council, the elders turned to the third. Irizen, Koru said, is that who we think he is? He nodded. How come he's here? He got up and turned to the window. His seal worked. It worked perfectly, but no one could look at the scroll containing it without getting sad. In fact, we should thank Natsumi-chan for her release. If it wasn't for her and her innate curiosity, I doubt he would have been released. Released. I'm going to put them on the same team. Natsumi seems to be especially fond of him, as he doesn't mind that she's a Hinshiriki. That's another thing, Omura said. Why have him as Genin, when we all know how powerful he is? Saruto and chuckled, knowing it was the truth. He asked for it. He seems to have become protective of Natsumi-chan, though he doesn't show it. Konoha should get fit soon, if not, everyone will get a brutal beating from him. The three of them grunted, knowing it was true. Whenever someone acted the wrong way, or more importantly, I made him angry with it, I annihilated him. I wonder how he will react to young Uzumaki's living conditions, a thoughtful Danzo said. The three of them turned pale and said shit in unison. With Naruto and Natsumi, after they left, Naruto was carried by the arm by an extremely happy Natsumi. Happy. He let himself be dragged through the streets as he watched how Konoha had changed. He was pleasantly surprised that hardly anything had changed since its sealing. It bothered him a little that the streets had torn everyone apart, but then he noticed that the situation seemed to increase as it progressed. Natsumi-chan, where are we going? He asked. She turned to him and gave him a smile, although he noticed that it was a little forced. You're staying with me since you don't have a house, silly, he replied. Then he focused on his way again, thus avoiding her frown. 5 minutes later, the The two arrived at a ramshackle apartment building. Naruto was frowning hard, but Natsumi didn't notice. She led him down the stairs, which almost collapsed 4 times, and took him to her apartment. He looked around, staring at the trash. Everywhere, moss stains and furniture that should be in a trash heap instead of a house. He noticed how she moved with her height, frowning almost permanently. Well, it's not a big deal, but it's my home. He took one last look at the apartment. He shook his head, already decided. You're not staying here, Natsumi-chan. Huh? Why not? She asked. He snorted disdainfully. Look at this place. The stairs almost collapsed several times. There is garbage everywhere, moss on the floor and walls. And the furniture is rubbish at best. This place is falling apart. No, you're definitely not staying here. She frowned as he pointed out all the flaws of the place to her. But where else am I going to stay? Not many people are willing to stay at home, and even if they were, they would charge so much for one night that it would be like a month in a hotel. Naruto almost grunted at what they had done. Natsumi-chan, I know that what I'm going to ask you is probably going to be difficult for you to answer, but I need to know what happened to you. Natsumi suddenly became depressed. Do you really want to know? He felt her. She sighed and told him. He told her about it. She told him how she was kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 4, how she went hungry 4 days at a time, how no one helped her as if she didn't exist, and how she received beatings from time to time. Once in a while, it meant once every 2 weeks. They were put in prison, but the council rescued them in less than 5 days. He growled at how low the village had fallen. I was happy that that was the limit. It would have had to sink the whole of Konoha in a maelstrom of tsunamis, glaciers and forests. He sighed deeply. You'll stay with me. I'm a senju, remember? I have access to all the land, houses, shops and anything else that my clan has bought or financed. Gather up everything that can be salvaged and meet me outside in 5 minutes. She nodded as he left. True to his word, they found themselves outside within 5 minutes, and he made his way to his clan's compound. He cut off his hand without blinking and placed it on the doors. After a minute, they opened, allowing them access. He took Natsumi's hand, not noticing that she was blushing. He opened the front door of the building and ushered her in. Natsumi was amazed. From what he had heard, the Senju compound was abandoned, and yet it looked like someone had been living here. Naruto turned to her. Choose the room. Whichever one you prefer. I'll stay in the main room. I'll show you the place tomorrow. Get some rest tonight, you've had a difficult experience. She wanted to protest, but a yawn interrupted her. She snorted indignantly and went up the stairs. He shook his head and thought, this will be very interesting. A week later, Natsumi Academy was guiding Naruto back to the classroom. I was looking forward to seeing the new generation of shinobi from the village. They heard the man Naruto recognized as Iruka giving a bombastic speech. Before he could react, Natsumi kicked open the door and dragged him into the classroom. He got up completely and gave her a mocking look, then turned his attention to the class and saw that everyone was looking at him. None of them seemed capable of surviving even 1 day as a real shinobi. I knew these guys well. They were one of those who believed that being a ninja would bring them wealth and fame. He snorted at her pitiful attempts to characterize him. If it was easy to read, he would kill himself. I expected nothing less than his 100% in everything he did. I knew that life would give them a hard blow, and that's when they can prove their worth. Class, Iruka said. Welcome, latest graduates. The class erupted into a frenzy. Wait a minute, a wild-looking guy with a puppy shouted. How come that guy skipped the academy and still graduated? And how's the last one here? Iruka sighed. Natsumi is here because I found evidence that her exams were tampered with. So they gave him a second chance and he passed. As for Naruto, he's a special case. If you have any complaints, tell them to Okage. Naruto nodded in a sign of respect for the Chunin's ability to handle the situation and not reveal anything I shouldn't. He and Natsumi sat in the back, away from everyone. She arched an eyebrow at this, but considering that she is the current Hinshiriki, She was most likely bullied or rejected by her peers because adults asked her to. He examined everyone who had a chance to succeed if they took it seriously. First, there was a brunette girl with a blue shirt, white shorts, and a pair of those sandals you've seen all shinobi wear. Apparently, he belonged to the Uchiha clan because of the symbol on his shirt. Then there was a hairy guy, with brown hair and glasses, with a huge coat. From what he learned in his encounter with the Sandaime, he was a member of the Burami. He couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. Finally, there was a pale-skinned guy with a fake smile, two small clothes, and a huge scroll. Everyone else lacks the drive to move forward, and will probably die on their first C-rank mission. He turned his attention back to the team assignments. The first 6 were not important, as they were full of guys without motivation or fanatics. Team 7 will be compromised by. Team 7 consists of Sakura Aruno, Sayuri Uchiha, and Sai Shimura. Your sensei is Kazumi Attack All, Kakashi. Iruka said. Sakura squealed with joy at being on the same team as her idol. Sayuri moaned and banged her head on the desk. And Sai just smiled with that strange smile that gave most people chills. Naruto arched an eyebrow and thought Danzo. Reproduced. I never thought I'd get to see him. Team 8 will consist of Kiba and Nuzuka, Otaro Aburame, and Janata Yuga. Your sensei will be Karena and Yui. Kiba howled in approval at being the only boy on an all-female team. Otaro arched an eyebrow, knowing he was on a team with a pervert. And Nada felt bad for not being on the same team as her crush. Naruto looked at her with his eyebrow still raised. So the stalker Yuga is not on Natsume's team. Fine. Now I won't have to worry about him trying something. Team 9 is still active. So the 10th team will consist of Inoue Minaka, Shikanara the female Shikamaru, and Choji Akamichi. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. And she didn't bang her head on the desk for being stuck on a team with, in her own words, he and Shika's bum. I mean, the burly Choji. Shika was snoring and Choji was happy to be on the same team as his best friend. Naruto patted his face. From what I've learned this week, that would be the new generation of the Inoshikato trio. Wrong, they are over-specializing the teams. So far, we have the traditional assault team, the tracking team, and now the capture and interrogation team. And finally, the 11th team will consist of Yakumo Karama, Natsumi Uzumaki, and Naruto Senju. Upon hearing Naruto's last name, the class erupted into a chorus of murmurs, gossip, and shouting. Kiva got up quickly. What the hell is a Senju like? I thought they were all dead. There were several consensus in the class, especially among the boys, since, although Natsumi is the last one. She is considered one of the prettiest girls in the class, and they were jealous of the attention she paid to Naruto. And it was true since his arrival, Natsumi has not taken her eyes off him. Iruka tried to calm down his rowdy class before using his jutsu. His characteristic, Akuma no to Temayutsu demon head technique, shut up, brats. As I was saying, the sensei of Team 11 is Yugao Yuzuki. If you have any complaints, tell them to Okage. Best of luck in your careers as a shinobi. Naruto snorted. As if they were really going to survive, he muttered. But it looks like Kiva heard it. What was that, loser? He grunted. Naruto looked at him indifferently. I have to say it again. He sighed. I said none of you will survive. This earned him angry looks from almost everyone in the classroom. But before they could say anything, the sensei came in and started gathering their teams. A man with short hair, disheveled black hair, beard, and smoking a cigarette called them. Team 10, you're with me. A woman with loose black hair, crimson eyes, makeup, and an outfit that looked like it was made of bandages, he spoke next. Team 8, follow me. Soon, only the 7 and 11 equipment remained, yum. Sakura got angry because her sensei hadn't arrived yet and started screaming. Sayuri became thoughtful, but she kept looking at Naruto, only to look away with a slight blush when he looked at her. I was there. Being SAA? Natsumi finally came out of her thoughts, which will remain hidden forever for my own torture, and realized the current situation. Go, go, he said to get Naruto's attention. Where is our Naruto, Kun-sensei? Naruto sighed and looked up. There he is, she said dryly. Looking up, Natsumi found a kunoichi with long purple hair, red lipstick, brown eyes, and a red tattoo. On the right shoulder, ambu tattoo. So you finally noticed me, his sensei said. No, Naruto said with a slight yawn, I was just waiting for you to show up. His sensei looked surprised. I knew he was good, but I didn't think he was that good. Really? So why didn't you say anything? Naruto replied dryly. No one asked. This almost made her fall on her face. If he hadn't been so high, he would have fallen on his face or on his back because of what he said. But he managed to straighten up and landed on his feet. Okay, I'll see you at the 19th training camp. That said, he ran away with the Shunsin. Naruto got up, grabbed Natsumi by the shoulder and left just like his sensei. This left Team 7 alone to do what they were doing before. Training Camps 19. Naruto and Natsumi appeared in a whirlpool of water, which surprised. To his sensei and his partner, as it is supposed to be incredibly difficult to add an element to the Shunsin. Naruto and Natsumi sat next to their companion. Very well, his sensei began, let's start with the introductions. My name is Yugao Yuzuki. I like Kenjutsu, my boyfriend Ayatiken, and my friends. What I don't like are the perverts, the rapists, the ones who look down on the kunoichi, and the arrogant civilians, who think they know how hard the shinobi life is. My hobbies are improving my sword techniques, going out with my friends, and enjoying my free time. My dreams for the future, well, one has already been fulfilled, and the other is to start a family one day. Okay, Yakumo-san, you're next. Yakumo straightened up so as not to look small or weak. My name is Yakumo Kurama, and I am the heiress of the Kurama clan, but don't treat me differently. I like to control my genjutsu better. Painting and my team, which is you. What I don't like are abusers, rapists, a certain woman who tried to take away my dream, and those who hate art. My hobbies are painting and training my muscles to make it last longer. My dream is to become the best genjutsu user in the nations. Elementary, and rubbing it in a certain woman's face. The team nodded, and Yugao pointed at Natsumi. My name is Natsumi Uzumaki. Not many people under the age of 15 know this, but I contain the Kubino Kitsune. He paused to observe his team's reactions. Yugao seemed surprised that she shared his secret. Yakumo looked at her in amazement, and Naruto nodded approvingly. Wow, Yakumo said, you must be very strong to contain the Kumi. Natsumi rubbed the back of his neck. Naruto nodded again, and Yugao smiled as he saw how the other two reacted to his secret. Anyway, I like Naruto-kun, training, ramen, and my friends. What I don't like are arrogant people, rapists, those who don't distinguish between a biju and its contents. And how long it takes for ramen to cook. My hobbies are working out, eating new types of ramen, and hanging out with Naruto-kun. My dream for the future is to become the first woman or Kage to prove that women are not weak and one day have a family. At the end, he looks at Naruto and blushes. Naruto was the last one. My name is Naruto Yuki Senhu. I am the son of Lokai Nigaim, transported to this time after a failed sealing experiment. Do not tell anyone this information without my express permission, or I will tear you apart. This earned him a frightened nod. I like my father, Natsumi-chan, this team, and the village. I dislike the villagers of this time, how weak all the shinobi are and how everyone seems to believe that shinobi life is only full of fame and glory. My hobbies are training, reading, studying the stars, and helping those who deserve it. My dreams for the future are to start a family, help everyone achieve their dreams, and put them on their feet. Yugao smiled mischievously, while Yakumo and Natsumi looked at him in disbelief. So do you think you can teach better than me? Whether you are Nidame's son or not, you are still a genin, Yugao said. I don't think I can teach better than you, Naruto said. However, none of you are as strong as you should be. Yakumo-san, you are an heiress and therefore represent your clan, but you have trouble walking due to underdeveloped muscles. Mostly, it's not your fault. You've probably had a sheltered life, and, as far as I could find out, your powers were sealed. But you didn't take the initiative to try to prepare. You just stuck to your hatred and did practically nothing. You want to be the best at genjutsu, right? Then take the initiative, and you will go far. Natsumi-chan, Your education and training were sabotaged by ingrates who are supposed to be teachers. You were always looking for attention and therefore resorted to jokes. This further ruined your education and set you back. However, this helped you to improve your stealth, infiltration, and cheating skills. You just need a little refinement. And finally, here is the sensei. I can't say much, because I don't know her well enough, but she's weaker than she should be, due to having been at peace for so long. By his looks, he has seen and experienced a difficult life, but he has overcome it. What he lacks now is drive. He needs a goal. Tell me if you have a degree here that you are recognized for. The other three were stunned at his words. He pointed out to them all their flaws and what had led to them. He also told them what they could do to improve. Yugao recovered himself to answer him. I am known as the master of Konoha Kenjutsu for my skill with the sword. He nodded. Then aim higher. Aspire to live up to the Kirinoshi no Bigatana Shikinen Shu 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. They are recognized as the best. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best, do you understand? Fine. It was not noticeable, but it had lit the inner flame of each of them. They followed his advice and promised to get better and stronger. Yugao coughed into his hand. Okay, normally I would ask them to do some kind of survival exercise to check if they are ready to become a genius. However, since Natsumi-san and Naruto-sana revealed their secrets, I think everyone is ready. Yakumo raised his hand and interrupted her. Yes, he asked. Yakumo seemed to struggle with herself for a moment before giving in. There's something you should know. When my powers were sealed, they manifested using my negative emotions to become Hido. He keeps trying to get hold of me to wreak havoc. He looked away from everyone, not wanting to see their reactions. She was very surprised to feel two arms surrounding her. She turned around and saw Natsumi hugging her. Why is that? He asked in a whisper. Because, Natsumi began, I understand. To be hated for something you are not. It hurts. But we are here for you. We'll help you. Trust us. Yakumo looked at his sensei, who gave him a reassuring smile, and at Naruto, who nodded. She smiled and returned the hug. Okay, everyone, Yugao said. See you tomorrow for training at 7:30 a.m. Don't be late. See you later. He left with a shunsin. The three of them blinked for a moment to take in what had just happened. Hey, Natsumi said, do you want to go get something to eat? Yakumo nodded, and Naruto nodded. Natsumi smiled, grabbed them both, and dragged them to her favorite restaurant. Hello, Toiki Jiji, there amen, I'm back. Natsumi shouted excitedly. There he already looked up at me and smiled at her. Oh, hello, Natsumi-chan. Who are these two? Friends of yours? He asked. Yeah, well, sort of. They are my companions, but I would like to consider them friends. A hand rested on his shoulder. Don't worry, Natsumi-chan, we are your friends, Naruto said. Enough of the drama, Toiki said as he came out of the back. Did you come for lunch? Or were you planning to audition for a soap opera? His daughter hit him on the head. Only you and people your age see such things, Tuzan. Naruto sat next to Natsumi and Yakumo too. All right, Hiji, I'll have 10 bowls of ramen, Natsumi said. I'll take 2. One of chicken and one of beef, Yakumo said. I'll have a big one of chicken and beef, with some pork, Naruto said. His orders didn't take long to arrive, and when they finally arrived, Natsumi pounced on his like a hungry man. Yakumo ate more slowly, but still faster than usual. Naruto ate normally, taking his time to enjoy the meal. While all this was going on, I was examining the two of me who arrived with her favorite client. Yakumo seemed shy, but he was a funny person. But the mystery was his teammate. I've never seen him before, and he's seen everyone in this village, including Yakumo, so he was careful in case he tried anything. But the more she looked at him, the more she noticed his features and how handsome he was. He did not realize that he had spent 20 minutes watching the mysterious boy. She woke up when Naruto looked at her and asked, "Can I help you?" She babbled a little, tried to think of something, and then ran back. Naruto arched an eyebrow and Natsumi wondered what had happened to her Nechen. The rest of the time was spent in comfortable silence, with the occasional light chat, until they decided it was time to go home. With Yugao, after she left, Yugao showed up at the office of the Okage immediately after leaving his new team. The third one looked up. "Ah, Yugao-chan, what are you doing here? The team tests are not until tomorrow." He looked at him for a moment, which made him unconsciously fidget. "Why didn't you tell me that Naruto-san is the son of the Nidame?" The third one stuttered a little. He didn't expect it. That she was pregnant, or that she didn't want to be a sensei, of course. It was to be expected. Even now, telling her that she was a lesbian, and that she wanted her to tell Yate, she could believe it. It wasn't the first time someone had done something like that. I wasn't prepared for her to know who Naruto really was. "I do not know what you are talking about," he said, cursing his stammer. "Stop with the nonsense. Naruto told us this himself during the team presentation. How come he's here? He said something about a failed experiment. Now tell me," he said in a firm voice. Iris sighed. "I could never say no to a woman when she got like that." It was one of the things his wife used to instill in him. Naruto Yuki Senju is the son of Okage Nidame. He was a prodigy who eclipsed all others, even to Minato-kun. He has the same control over the water as the Nidame and owns the Yoden, thanks to his mother being an exiled member of the Yuki clan. He was so skilled that at the age of 13, he could fight his father on an equal footing. I remember watching his workouts with amazement. He was always calm and collected, very severe when he considered it necessary. And he did everything possible to protect those he considered valuable. In fact, if I wanted to, I could give him the job. He has the necessary experience in war, skill, power, and intellect. But the bastard refuses. It's not fair. I spent almost 60 years in this damn office, only to be brought back when my reckless successor kills himself. Now, the only one fit for the job doesn't want it. I know you know about the paperwork. Damn you, Minato. Damn you, Naruto. Damn you both." At the end of his speech, he banged his head on the table and proceeded to sob and beat it with his fist nonstop. Yugao sweated out a drop from his leader's performance. He sighed, pinched the bridge of his nose, and walked out the way he had come in. Irison immediately took a look to see if he was still there. When he was sure she was gone, he rummaged through his desk and pulled out a familiar orange book. He let out a giggle and said to himself, "Finally. I thought he would never leave." The hidden Ambo could only sweat a drop or put his hand to his face. The next day, team evaluation. Irison sat at his desk as firmly as in the war. Well, that was on the outside. Inside, I was crying and thinking. One day. Just one day for me, that's a lot to ask. He sighed and said, "Now that you're all here, let's start with the assessments." A random honey came forward. Team 1 failed. They had no coordination and tended to show off with every move. Team 2 failed. They were constantly tripping over each other. Team 3 approved. Although a little lazy, he promises. Team 4 failed. Don't even get me started. Team 5 failed. What a pity. That's all I have to say. Team 6 failed miserably. They were still worried about everything that might happen, and they peed with laughter when one of my snakes chased them into the field. Anko said, furious. The others didn't know who to feel bad about, whether for the children or for Anko. Team 7 passed, Kazumi said. This surprised everyone. Although they usually fight for the leader now, with some training and discipline, they would form a powerful force. Team 8 passed. With a little time, I trust that I will at least be able to moderate the perversity of Kiva. Imada needs to increase her confidence and self-esteem. And Otaru needs to socialize more. By being on this team, Imada will get that boost he needs from his teammates. Otaru will socialize better. And with 3 women watching over him, Kiva's perversity will decrease. Josh. You know about my team, Okage-sama. Team 10 approved. Although Hino is self-centered, Shika is lazy, and Chuji can't let go of her tokens for 5 minutes. They are very promising as the next Hino Shikato. The 11th team passed. They didn't even know each other for 10 minutes, and yet he told them. to his companions his darkest secrets. This, instead of separating them, has brought them together and given them mutual acceptance. Most were surprised that they gave it. They refer to Natsumi, she will share her Hinshiriki status. Sarutovia felt, expecting nothing less from the son of her sense. All right, he said. Everyone who failed their teams can continue as before. For the rest, I hope everyone will train their teams. That includes you, Kazumi-chan. Naruto-sen. I mean, Naruto-kun has pointed out to me that we have gone soft in peacetime. This can't go on like this. If we want to keep our customers, we must prove that we are the strongest. Stand down. Team 11 was in the mission room, waiting for their next mission. Everyone was upset with the missions of the past 2 months. Since its formation, they were just glorified tasks. That was all. But no one was more upset than Naruto. He knew that his shinobi had lost potential, and he didn't understand why. I knew it now. When a ninja needs extra money, he accepts rank quests from Naruto used to beat the sea and be ranks for pure fun. He had promised himself that his team would stop accepting missions of rank of. Okay, we'll walk the dogs and Nuzuka, do some shopping for an old lady, or Tora. Or there is also the possibility of catching the daimyo's wife's cat, Tora. No. It was a whisper, nothing more, but it echoed throughout the room. These glorified tasks are over. Everyone in the quest room turned to Naruto. Excuse me, Iruka asked. Naruto looked around with an apathetic look that made them nervous. Listen, Irizen. Everyone gasped when they saw that he dared to call the Sandaime by his name in that way. You say you want the new generation to grow up, and yet, you don't allow us to accept higher-ranked missions. I'm sure you know my background. I completed the C and B ranks for pure fun. Why is that? Because I could. You've got me doing chores now. This has annoyed me, so I ask you, would you be so kind as to give my team a C rank? Everyone turned to the third one, ready to beg him to at least allow the last Senju to live. It was, preferably in order of reproduction. However, they were left thinking when they saw the third one. And Ruzan looked at Yugao. Do you think they're ready? She caught what I was asking. Aren't they ready? If the girls aren't ready, she nodded affirmatively. Very well, he said. You're lucky. We have received a C rank from a bridge builder from Nami. Greeting. You, wait, Okage-sama, Iruka's voice said. You're not considering this, are you? They just got out of the academy. Although I know that Naruto-san is very powerful, and Yugao-san too, Natsumi and Yakumo are not ready for a C rank. I was their teacher less than 2 months ago. It is not possible that they have become so strong so quickly. Natsumi felt puzzled by what Iruka said, while Yakumo looked at one of the few who was not afraid of him. I say she's not ready. It was a huge blow to his confidence and Natsumi's pride. But before he could argue with Iruka, the door opened, and Team 7 entered. Team 7 reporting to duty, Okage-sama, Kazumi said. She looked up from her book, porn, and saw that everyone was looking at her. Did I miss something? The third recovered. How about this? If you don't think you're ready for a C rank on your own, how about a joint mission? It could give them experience and strengthen the relationships between the teams. Iruka was about to argue before he thought about it, and reluctantly nodded with a sigh. Everyone applauded the third for living up to his teaching title. What no one knew or saw was Naruto showing the cards with what he had just said. Mentally he scored to give him a bonus. Let the bridge builder come. An old man with dark gray hair, a straw hat, and reeking of punch came staggering in. This is my protection, he complained. I paid 4 ninjas, not 6 brats. A small amount of hair spread around the room. Well, it would be small for those of cage level or higher. The Honin were sweating, the Chunin were breathing hard, the Genin were hugging each other for support and comfort. And the civilians were on their knees on the ground, watching them die in various ways. Naruto, stop, said the Sandaime. The oppressive feeling in the air evaporated, as if it had never existed. True, said the bridge builder, now sober. My name is Tazuna. You must protect me until I finish my bridge. Understood. Both teams nodded. Tazuna left, complaining that she needed new shorts. Kazumi turned to her team. Wow, what a surprise rat. Looks like we got the C rank everyone wanted. Go home and pack your bags for a month-long trip. Her team nodded and walked out the door, while she walked out with a body and blinking shun. Yugao turned to his team. Get ready for a moth. Pack light. We don't want to fall into disgrace. I hope to see all three of you at the gates in an hour. His team needed no further instructions. Naruto created 2 clones. 1 for each girl. They took their respective girl and walked away doing their Itenshin without blinking of the body of water. Yugao left afterwards, among his own leaves. Everyone looked at Naruto, waiting for him to go the same. He raised his hands when he saw a big cloud of smoke from his feet and some lights, and he left. Presume, said the third. An hour later, at the front door, the group was waiting for the arrival of Sakura, Kazumi and their client. Yugao understood Kazumi why he always did it, but he wondered what was the reason for Sakura and her client's tardiness. Finally, Sakura arrived. Only he was dragging a suitcase. A drop of sweat escaped Naruto as his 2 companions smacked their foreheads with their hands. They wanted to prove that this woman was not weak, and Sakura was proof of that. Sai smiled, Sayori purred, and Yugao's eye started to shake. What is that? Natsumi asked. Sakura looked at her and gave her a superior smile. Why is that? It's just my complete makeup collection, and some of my best dresses. A girl needs accessories. But we all know you don't even have the essentials, Tobe. Naruto pinched his nose at his explanation. I knew standards had gone down, but I didn't think they'd go down that much, he thought. Yakumo was asking him why he had to ally with Levance. Finally, Natsumi had a big check mark. Idiot, he said. We are going on a mission, not to the mall. Sakura shrugged, but otherwise ignored her. For the next 10 minutes, Naruto tried to contain the sighs and laughter between Natsumi trying to hit Sakura and Sakura's screams. Kazumi chose that moment to arrive. With your client. You're late, Sakura shouted. Kazumi waved her goodbye and left, followed by everyone. The entire trip passed in silence, except for the brief moments when Sakura was questioning her client about Nami. On the way, they spotted a puddle in the middle of the road. Kazumi calmly walked to the back of the group. But nothing happened. He exchanged a glance with Yugao, who shrugged, and they continued on their way. After they left, a head popped up from the ground. He looked to the left, and then to the right, making sure no one was there. Ugh, that's a little. We can't handle that many. We need to inform the base. Enjoy yourself. The other one stood up with bleary eyes. Q, yawn, what? I was sleeping, Mizu. Mizu's eye was quivering from his brother's antics. Come on, we need to get back to base. His brother nodded, staggered a little and then jumped between the trees after him. Hey, Mizu. Do you think we can eat? Mizu had to restrain himself from hitting his brother on the head. Back with the Konoha ninja group, we found them. Crossing the canal in a boat. But the engine is turned off so that they are not detected, despite the fact that there are no guards within a 12-mile radius. It's huge, Natsumi commented. Yes, said Tazuna, that's my pride and joy. Everyone here is looking forward to its completion. It will open a new trade route at half the price. We'll give back to those affected by Gato. We're not doing as well as we used to since Gato arrived. He bought all the docks and ports and raised the prices of shipments. This is going to cost him a hard blow. They continued in silence until they reached land. As soon as they left, the boatman sped off. The group walked to their client's house without incident. Tazuna knocked on the door. Immediately, the door opened and a frying pan fell on his head. He fell back, letting the ninja see a woman of 20-somethings holding her. She seemed surprised for a moment, but then she realized what she was doing. Oh, father. He ran to help his father, along with Natsumi and Yakumo. He nodded to the 2 girls. I guess you're my father's protection. Well, come on in. I'm sorry about what just happened. We've been through some difficult times, and I thought you were coming to rob us. By the way, my name is Tsunami." While the group was chatting with their client's daughter, Naruto stayed behind. "Something is not right here, how can they be happening? Rush while he is working on a bridge, I am missing something, but that I will take a look around the city later." Having said that, he returned to the conversation. "Hidden base, we apologize, Master," the demon brothers said in unison. "There were too many of them," Mizu said. "If we had tried, we would have killed 1 or 2, 3 hopefully." A figure was sitting on a comfortable-looking chair in the shadows of the room. Only a huge Zanbatsu was visible. Next to the seated figure was his right hand. A young woman with long black hair, tied up in a bun, and brown eyes. The figure told them to continue. "We have managed to identify the leaders of the team," Gozu said. "The first was Shengen no Kazumi, the copycat ninja. She was our most likely target, as she was traveling at the end of the group and was engrossed in her book." Mizu took control. The other leader was Konoya's Kenjutsu master, Yugao of the Crescent Moon. He kept a close eye on everything around him. When he saw our hiding place, I swear he looked me straight in the eye. It was surreal. We have also prepared a list of the genin with them, and even a couple of quick snapshots. He took out the folder and put it on the floor. "That's all," he concluded. There was a moment of silence before the figure gave the signal to leave. They did it in a hurry. After the departure, the young woman picked up the folder and handed it to her master. The figure began to glance at it, taking a quick glance at the genin's descriptions, before stopping at the last one. The figure was watching her with an intensity the woman had rarely seen. He stared at the page on which his master was standing. What she saw took her breath away. It was the image of a child in an ancient armor that looked like snowflakes falling on the waves. She had 4 stripes on her attractive face, 2 on each cheek. Golden eyes and white hair that turned into light blue, combed into tips. Her teacher snapped his fingers and interrupted her. They pointed to the image of the child. She understood. His teacher wanted information about this genin. With his silent orders, he left. With Naruto, the next day Naruto had just left the bridge builder's house, heading to the village. He had explained what he would do to Yugao, who agreed with his analysis of the situation. She had decided that Yakumo and Natsumi will stay to protect the family, while she protected Tazuna. Kazumi had decided that it was the perfect time to start training her students. Naruto shook his head. "I knew that Team 7 was destined to fail from the beginning, and that not training it only made it worse." He looked up and saw that he had reached his destination. And he didn't like what he saw. The buildings were in ruins. Ragged people, apparently living on the street, fighting over the works. Someone tried to rob him, but a setback stopped him and sent him flying. Then, everyone made way for him. He noticed a building that was not completely deteriorated. A bar. How picturesque. He walked into the establishment and saw that it was quite full of a bunch of thugs, for lack of a better term. As he approached the counter, he saw the men rioting and drinking as if they didn't care about anything. He sees a lightly dressed woman dancing for the men, trying, and in some cases unsuccessfully, to hide her disgust towards her customers. If the men saw it, they didn't seem to mind. He arrived, only to be greeted by a quick glance from the waiter. The man nodded to himself. As he approached, Naruto decided to ask some questions. He searched for information. This seemed like the best place to look. The man looked around and nodded. Naruto ordered a glass of orange juice. It was early in the morning, and I needed something. The waiter brought him his drink before approaching. "What did you need to know?" he asked. Naruto took another look around the room. "Where's Gato?" It was a simple question. But he had weight in Nami. If Gato found out that you had told a stranger where you were, you would be found dead. Your belongings would be stolen and your family enslaved. "That is something I cannot answer," replied the tavern keeper. Before Naruto could ask why, he was approached by some of the more serious thugs. "And why would you want to know where the boss is?" he asked, trying to intimidate the white-haired boy. Naruto didn't turn around or pay attention to him. "Hey," I said, "why would you want to know where the boss is?" When Naruto didn't answer, the man turned around and grabbed him by the shoulder. It turned out to be a mistake. Naruto grabbed the arm, smashed it against the counter, and stuck a kunai on it, provoking a surprised scream from the bully. "To kill him," Naruto said. He took the kunai from her, slit her throat, and threw it over the bar, impaling a man who was trying to be too rough with one of the women. The bar fell silent before a thug roared with rage and attacked him. Naruto dodged the clumsy blow, grabbed his arm, and broke it in two. The man screamed as the bone pierced through his skin. Naruto drove the sharp bone into the man's skull. The next one tried to decapitate him with a sword stroke. Naruto tilted his head down and avoided the blow. She elbowed him in the ribs, forcing him to bend over. Naruto twisted his wrist, which caused him to drop the sword, and caught it. He cut off the man's head and threw it into his other hand. He picked it up, blocking the blow of a man wielding a heavy club. He kneed him and impaled him with the sword. Naruto turned to the right, sending the body against three men. Naruto put his foot around a chair. The nearby one and pushed her back, causing her to collide with one of the thugs, who was trying to sneak up on her. The man slid forward until he was next to Naruto. He lifted his foot and stomped on it. The fight continued like this until he killed the last one, less than 5 minutes later. Naruto watched as the women quickly rummaged through the corpses, taking with them what they needed. Whether it was food, money, or weapons. He reached into his pocket and put a few hundred rivers on the counter. "For the damage," he said, and went out. Just as he reached the door, he heard a waiting cry. He turned around and saw one of the women run up to him and hand him a piece of paper. She bowed in gratitude and returned to the others. Naruto was walking down the street when he decided to look at the newspaper. Cat lives in a mansion a few kilometers from the forest, which, northeast of the bridge. He nodded to himself, tore up the newspaper, and returned to the bridge builder's house. Hidden Base Aku presented himself to his master. "I have my report," he said. His teacher told him to continue. "I haven't been able to find out anything about the young man, but I found out that Yugao has been dedicated to protecting the bridge builder. His team protects the family, while Kazumi has been training his team in the forest, away from everyone. I lost the boy when he entered the village. I don't know if he knew I was there, but he disappeared into the crowd when I tried to follow him. Finally, I saw him coming out of a bar reading a paper. I checked out what I had gotten, only to be met with a massacre of the cat thugs. I couldn't feel chakra in the area, so I guess he didn't use it. That means he killed more than 50 cat men with his bare hands." Her teacher chuckled at this revelation. "I wonder," the female voice said, "will you offer me the challenge I long for so much?" He leaned forward to reveal a stunning woman. She had shoulder-length black hair, strikingly yellow eyes, a heart-shaped face, wide hips, a slender waist, and shapely breasts. He also sported a bloodthirsty smile. If this guy could do what his apprentice said he did with his bare hands, it would probably be the challenge she was looking for. "Aku," he said, "start preparing. We attack later this week." "Teacher," Aku asked, "should I call for backup?" At the curious gaze of his teacher, he continued, "We do not know his strengths. And the surprise factor will probably not help with the honey." His teacher grunted and sighed. "Go ahead," he said. You could tell in his voice that he was hesitant to make that decision. Aqua felt and left. "But that boy is mine," the woman said. Bridge builder's house, weekend. The group was getting ready to leave, but Yugao noticed that Naruto didn't move from the couch. "Naruto?" he asked, attracting everyone's attention. "Why don't you get ready?" Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. "I thought it would be better if at least one of us stayed here. If someone has Tazuna in their sights, they could go after his family to get him." Everyone stopped to think about it, except Sakura, who was glaring at him for taking away Sayori's role. Yugao sighed at his logic. She could never win when it comes to him. "Men are never supposed to win when they argue with women," he lamented. "Well, do whatever you want. Not that I can argue with you." She muttered the latter to herself, angrily. Naruto nodded, and watched them leave with a listless face. When he was sure they were gone, he conjured up several clones. "Listen, Tsunade," he turned to the daughter, "I will fulfill my goal. My team doesn't know about it. That's the main reason I'm staying, so they don't realize what I'm about to do. I'm leaving these clones here as protection in case Gato tries something. Yes, I know everything. Do you really expect me to venture into the city and not notice some things? Each of these clones is powerful enough to take down several Honen, so you shouldn't have much to worry about." With that said, Naruto headed to Gato's mansion. A few minutes after Naruto left, a crash was heard at the front door. Tsunade is out, running to see what had caused the commotion, only to find her son, and Nari, being held by two cat men. "Listen," said the youngest, "we'll make you a deal. Come with us without any problems, and we will make sure that your child is not sold to the mines." "Is it a done deal?" "No," Inari shouted. "I don't want to go. Let go of me, you idiots." He continued to struggle until the youngest elbowed the child. "Shut up. Damn, kids are so heavy." "Then I guess you won't like me," Naruto said. Before the two aspiring samurai could react, a clone appeared before the little one and sent him flying with a kick against a tree. Another clone attacked from behind and punched Inari's captor in the head. The man flew out, but not before the first clone caught Inari. "What a disappointment," the Naruto clone said. The first one looked down when he heard a sob. He sees Inari trying to hold back the tears. He put his hand gently on her head and ruffled her hair. He was very brave. Most would have given up as soon as they got caught. "But you fought with all your might. That's the sign of a strong man, Inari. A strong man that I know you will become one day." Inari looked at him with admiration, and Tsunade smiled. His son was a hero again. The two went back inside, while the Naruto clones returned to their positions. With the real Naruto had just arrived at the outer gates of the mansion. "Hey kid," one of the approaching guards shouted. "Hey, I'm talking to you." The more Naruto ignored the man, the angrier he got. Fed up with his disrespect, he threw a punch at him. Naruto caught him with one hand. She looked at him coldly, making him tremble with fear. The cracking of bones was heard, and the man let out a scream with a last snap. Naruto picked him up and threw him against the doors. The doors opened with a bang. All eyes turned towards the doors to see Naruto coming in as if he was taking a walk. Naruto looked at them all with an impassive gaze. He cracked his neck and grabbed one of his kunai. "Try to make this fun for me," he said. With the others, after they left, they had just arrived at the bridge. The problem was that there was an abnormal amount of fog in the air. Yugao and Kazumi could feel the chakra linked in the fog. They both nodded and activated their chakra. They only cleared the fog enough to see several meters ahead. There were bodies of workers everywhere. Tazuna ran to the nearest one. He checked for a pulse and breathed a sigh of relief when he found one. "They are alive, just unconscious," he said. "I can't say the same about you soon enough," a voice said from the fog. Later on, the fog cleared to reveal several figures. 3 women and 2 men. Only one could not be identified thanks to a hunter's mask. Well, said a red-haired woman. "You didn't mention that there would be 2 big-name Honen, Shizuka-chan." The other woman just chuckled. "Well, it will be so," the woman said, but you could hear her mischievousness. "Shizuka Momoki, Amayuri Ringo, and the Demon Brothers," Kazumi said. "Looks like this mission just got ranked up." "Yugao, who are you looking for?" Yugao scoffed, thinking who he would face. "To hell with this," he shouted at Mayuri, knocking her out of her thoughts. "I'll take the bitch." He charged forward with drawn swords. Yugao unsheathed his katana and jumped away from the group so as not to involve the genin in the conflict. Kazumi did not take her eyes off the remaining enemies. "Listen," he addressed the genin, "you must." He interrupted her when Sayuri unsheathed a kuna and recklessly charged at the enemy group. "Wait a minute. Damn it. Natsumi, Yakumo, help her. I'll take care of Shizuka." Sakura, "Sai, stay here and protect the bridge builder." Without waiting for a response, she also charged at her long-awaited opponent. Natsumi looked at Yakumo and nodded. Both of them chased Sayuri to avoid being killed. Sakura tried to follow her, but Sai stopped her. He shook his head, and his constant smile disappeared. He came back into the fight and made one of the smartest decisions of his life. He stayed where he was. The battle of the bridge had just begun. With Naruto, Naruto had cleared the yard of all hassles. In short, he killed all the thugs. Effectively and brutally paid. Everything was painted with blood, unidentifiable human bodies and parts. He walked to the front door and kicked it open. He entered and saw a luxurious hallway with a red carpet, elegant tables and chairs, and multiple expensive-looking decorations, such as paintings, curtains, and various pieces of armor and weapons. He teased a number of useful armor and weapons. As he continued down the hallway, he kept an eye out for any booby traps or ambush points, as there was no one at the entrance. He made sure to check every room to make sure no one was attempting an ambush. He found more useless rooms, storage rooms, kitchens, bathrooms, but stopped when he opened the door of the last room. At the end of the first floor. It was a ladder going down. He narrowed his eyes before picking up a flashlight near the wall, in a typical atmosphere. He only went down one flight of stairs, but he was taken to a dungeon. He observed the various cages with blood on the floor near the drains, and skeletons and bodies hanging by the wrists after being chained to the wall. There were many torches to illuminate well, but he did not rule out his own. You never know when something might be useful. There were several torture machines that he was able to identify. First, there was a set of thumbscrews. It consisted of 3 vertical metal bars, between which the thumbs were placed. A wooden bar was sliding down the metal bars, pressing the thumbs against the bottom. A screw was pressing the wooden bar down, crushing the thumbs painfully. Then there was a fool's game. No, it wasn't a woman's chest. It was a bed on which the victim lay with his arms and legs tied with a sturdy rope. Then, he would spin a wheel, causing intense pain, until the limbs popped out of their joints. Sometimes the torturer would continue until the limbs were completely torn off. He made a slight grimace as he found Maiden. Of iron, breast rippers, and a pair of anguish. Iron maidens are metal sarcophagi with spikes. The victim was thrown inside, and the doors were closed. The spikes were strategically placed to pierce vital organs, but short enough not to kill. To the victim immediately. A breast ripper was intended only for women and is self-explanatory. The latter, however, is a rather interesting device. It was a pear-shaped device, whose body was formed by 4 metal sheets joined by a hinge at the top and a key or crank at one end. The pear was inserted into the vagina, anus, or throat, usually depending on the nature of the crime. When the key was turned, the leaves were opened, causing serious internal damage. The device was rarely fatal, but other methods of torture were often employed. By the flesh and blood of the devices, he noticed that they had been recently used. He said a short prayer for the deceased before continuing on his way. When he reached the end, he found a disturbing image foremost. Naruto is not included because he has seen much worse. They were men and women of different ages locked in cages as if they were animals. Just by looking at them, he realized that they had lost the will to live. I could not blame them, as most would not have been able to survive the various tortures. He had to snort when he saw the locks. It was just a chain and a lock that anyone could open with a little time, but with the people shattered as they were. It was impossible for anyone to try it soon. He took off the chains with a punch and let the doors open. People looked at him with confusion and some hope. "All right," he started, "get up. I have cleared the entrance and the courtyard. So I want everyone to run out." At first, no one moved. Some people still thought it was a trick. I said move. That got them going. As they ran out, they let out shouts of joy, sighs of relief, and various thanks. Naruto turned around and continued his tour of the mansion. He passed the second floor without problems. There were a few guards, but most of them were unconscious from excessive drinking, as indicated by the cups around them. The third floor had really alert guards, but they were easy to eliminate. When he reached the top floor, he found only a long hallway with some double doors at the end. There was only one guard dozing at the entrance. Naruto came up to him, grabbed him by the neck, and threw him against the door. It fell on the desk, breaking it. Naruto looked around for someone else. He just grunted when he saw that no one was there. He walked over to the moaning bully and picked him up to talk face to face. Naruto slapped him to get his full attention. What? That was all he could do before Naruto slapped him again. Listen, Naruto said quietly, I came here for a reason. To find and kill cat. There's only one problem. I don't see a cat. Now, unless you want to die a horrible and painful death, I suggest you tell me. The bully stammered, only to receive another slap. He proceeded to tell everything he knew about the betrayal planned by Gato. Naruto nodded before grabbing a crib and slitting the man's throat. Seeing the unspoken question in the dying man's eyes, he explained, I said that if you told me, I would not give you a painful ending. I never said anything about letting you go. Naruto ignored the body as it fell to the ground and summoned a couple of clones. You know what to do. They nodded and looked for something of value. Knowing the kind of man a cat is, I knew he would keep his valuables. With his clones fulfilling their mission, he headed to the bridge. Enjoy these moments, cat, because they will be the last. The bridge. When Naruto began his assault, Sayori had quickly gone on the defensive. He lunged forward in a surprise attack, hoping to eliminate one or two of the three opponents. He could see that it had worked at first. What I didn't expect was the recovery time. The two-horned demon brother had raised his clawed gauntlet for a downward attack. She had jumped to the side, only to receive a flying kick. He jumped a few meters before stopping. He looked up and saw the two-horned demon brother dealing another blow. One I knew I wouldn't be able to dodge in time. He closed his eyes as a tear escaped. I'm sorry, Tuzan, I failed. Looks like I'll be joining you, metallic sound. She suddenly opened her eyes and saw Natsumi standing in front of her, blocking the blow with a kunai. The other demon brother tried to reach her while she was engrossed, but had to abort his plan. When a clawed hand pierced through the ground and tried to reach him. What the hell? He asked. Looking to the side, he saw another genin standing there with a block of notes. She had just finished drawing something when he saw her. He turned the note block to show his cape on fire and his gauntlet melting. He laughed at what she was doing in the middle of the battlefield, only to change his tone as he realized what was really happening. His scream made everyone stop to see what had caused it. He was seen trying to remove his melted gauntlet and burning coat. He succeeded, albeit narrowly. He had third-degree burns on his hand and severe second-degree burns on various parts of his body. When he looked again at the objects he had removed, he noticed that they were perfectly fine. Why, bitch? He screamed. He pulled out a kunai and jumped after Yakumo. Back with Natsumi and Sayori, we found out that they were both on the defensive. Natsumi had taken advantage of the initial surprise of her attack very well. But she wasn't prepared for an enemy like one of the demon brothers. Even if she was a well-trained genin, that didn't mean that she had the strength, knowledge, and experience of the demon brother. She was repelled after he recovered from his brother's screams. But she had accomplished what she was supposed to do. He had prevented Sayori from dying and, moreover, had helped her to recover. The only thing that could make things worse would be if the fake ninja hunter had joined the fight. It was a relief and a worry at the same time that he had not joined. The demon brother had attacked them both, with the gauntlet held high and a kunai in the other hand. Natsumi dodged the gauntlet and placed herself under his guard to land a blow to his torso, while Sayori deflected the kunai. He had learned his lesson. He couldn't match his strength, but he could redirect his attacks. They jumped back and saw him holding his side with the cradle, and he looked at him, then at them, and laughed. "Haha, silly girls. Did they think this could stop me?" he said. He took off his cloak to show the armor he was wearing underneath. The girls cursed under their breath. Sayuri was thinking of endless plans to defeat the demon brother, while Natsumi examined him, looking for any possible weakness. His eyes caught something, and he smiled smugly. He grabbed Sayuri and whispered in her ear. They looked into each other's eyes and nodded with a mocking smile. Sayuri attacked first, followed closely by Natsumi. Kazuna liked their expression and didn't want to wait to see what plan they came up with. He went through a series of signs and shouted, "Sutonyano Kuchi, snake mouth." A large amount of water overflowed over the bridge and formed the head of a snake. He opened his jaws and attacked the two girls. This forced them to separate. Gozu went after the closest girl, Sayuri. He flew over her before she could recover and tried to put the gauntlet through her. She rolled on her back and landed a kick that hit his lower jaw. He staggered back a few meters, holding his jaw, now sore. He glared at her, but caught the sound of metal cutting through the air. He turned and dodged some kunai and shurikens that were thrown at him. He turned and found Natsumi 3 meters away from him with a kunai in a defensive grip. He snarled and pounced on her. She blocked his blow by channeling chakra into his arm. He grunted from the effort, but Sayuri jumped on his back and interrupted him. That he couldn't finish the sentence when Sayuri put a crib in him and on the ventilator. The girls recoiled when they heard her shortness of breath. Finally, they put him on his knees and tore off his mask. While he was gasping for fresh air, the girls came up and knocked him out with a decisive blow to the head. The next thing they knew, the other demon brother pounced on their brother. They jumped up and adopted a defensive posture, only to relax when Yakumo approached. Before they could ask, she held up a hand. He took his time to strike the final blow when he could. Even a monologue. Natsumi put her hand to her face at what she was told. However, their celebration was interrupted when a rain of ice-like senbon fell at their feet. They turned to see the forgotten ninja fake hunter with more senbon in her hand. "Impressive," they said. Her voice betrayed that they were, in fact, women. "However, I will not be so easy to defeat." He pounced on the girls with a speed they had only seen on their sensei. It was going to be a tough fight. On the other side of the bridge, we found Yugao at one point. Dead with Amayuri. She concentrated her affinity with the lightning on her sword to prevent the legendary Kiva swords from piercing her. Amayuri was smiling, surprisingly. "I haven't had a fight like that in years." The situation was even better because his opponent was an expert in the sword art, and he possessed an affinity with lightning like her. But, in his opinion, this stalemate had already lasted too long. He withdrew one of the swords and tilted the other, causing Yuago to overextend himself. Amayuri tried to stab her, but Yugao bent at the waist to avoid her. This was not without consequences. Yugao wasn't very flexible, and bending at that angle had hurt his back muscles. He grimaced in pain, but repressed it and straightened up. He jumped back and started his jutsu. Amayuri understood what he was planning and started his own. "Reiten Reikyu Lightning Ball." Yugao shouted. "Reiten Rei Hedi Lightning Strike," Amayuri said. The two jutsus collided. Yugao was good at lightning jutsus, but Amayuri was skilled. Therefore, it was not a surprise that Amayuri's jutsu went through Yugao's. She continued towards Yugao, weaker and slowed by the collision, which allowed her to dodge him. He raised his sword to fend off another attack from Amayuri's swords. "Oh shit! How can I match it?" He has a lot more experience in these situations. "It's like I can predict my movements." Not far from the battle between swordsmen, Kazumi was standing in the middle of the fog, trying to perceive Shizuka. It was difficult because it was not of the sensor type, and the fog, impregnated with chakra, made it even more difficult. 8 points, Shizuka's voice was heard. Heart, kidneys, liver, lungs, spine, clavicular vein, jugular vein, brain. These are the 8 points of the human body that cause instant death. Now, which one should I choose? Kazumi turned and lifted a cradle and to block the blow. He felt relief when the sword was removed. He had accumulated a lot of chakra in his arm to resist that blow. The sword came out of his right hand again. He jumped up and knocked the blade down with one kick. She dug herself into the ground and the fog dissipated enough for Shizuka to look at her angrily. He pulled the blade a few times, but it didn't move. "Okay," Shizuka said. "If that's the way you want to play, I'll play." He pounced on Kazumi at full speed to deliver a heartbreaking punch to her sternum. Kazumi was hunched over, coughing and panting. Shizuka withdrew her fist and gave him a blow on the neck. He dodged the blow by rolling forward. He took advantage of the momentum of the somersault to get to his feet and delivered a double donkey kick to her stomach, knocking her down on her back. They both stood there, staring at each other. Kazumi snorted a couple of times before lifting her protective it in front to reveal a fully developed Sharingan. "So you finally decided to take this seriously. Fine. Now show me what you got." Sharingan no Kazumi from the eye of the copy wheel. "Suten Mizubisan water clone," they both said. Each one had created 5 clones. The only difference was that, as Shizuka was still holding the sword, each of her clones had a copy. Kazumi cursed as she saw that the luck was tilting in favor of her opponents. They engaged in a brief battle that only resulted in the destruction of the clones, and in each combatant receiving some cuts and bruises. Shizuka was trying to hold back a cry of frustration. That's when he came up with an idea. He chuckled and let the fog cover the battlefield. Kazumi tensed up, thinking of all the possibilities this could bring. "Suten Swiryuden Water Dragon Missile." Shizuka's voice came from the left. This gave him enough warning to partially dodge the attack. It had still grazed his right side, ripping off his bulletproof vest and shirt. He put a hand on his side to stop the bleeding. A laugh echoed in the air, and Shizuka mentioned another jutsu. "Sutanda Ibakufu Big Water Vortex." Kazumi, with mental quickness, performed a Quaresmi substitution with the Kubikibicho. The water vortex crashed into the mighty sword. He resisted for a few seconds before succumbing to the jutsu. A loud crack was heard, and the sword split in two, leaving a fallen blade and a handle with a jagged end. Silence. That was all. "Then you will pay for this," Shizuka growled. He attacked with fury, visible on his face. He had a kunai in each hand, ready to make Kazumi bleed. This was what Kazumi had been waiting for. With her opponent's mind mired in anger, she became more careless and easy to read. Kazumi constantly dodged Shizuka's attacks, infuriating her even more. Kazumi jumped to the side, but had to kneel down when the jolt hit her injured side. Shizuka attacked with a descending attack. Kazumi, using chakra on her arms, managed to hold Shizuka's arms. He took advantage of this to get her away from her. "Do you know?" Shizuka said. "That wasn't very smart. You had the perfect opportunity to end this and you wasted it. You've gone soft." "No," Kazumi replied, "I just wanted to make you bleed more." He reached into his bag and pulled out a scroll. He unrolled it, wiped the blood off, threw it on the floor, and screamed knife. Totan Suiga Invocations, Shooting Earth Fang Tracker. A cloud of smoke came out of the scroll, and several things were thrown to the ground. "What?" Shizuka exclaimed. The fog cleared, and she revealed that several dogs were holding her down with bites on her limbs and the back of her neck. She struggled a little, but the dogs held her more tightly. "How?" he asked. "Simple," Kazumi said. "When I grabbed you, I put my blood on you. I just let my ninkin follow the trail to you." It was then that both Kunoichi noticed that the sound of the battle had calmed down. Then, a dark presence appeared. Looking at the end of the bridge, Kazumi saw a dome made of what looked like ice mirrors with a red glow inside. Then, Natsumi shot out with her fist stuck in the fake mask of the ninja hunter, with a tail of red chakra behind her. "I have to get this over with quickly. Congratulations, Shizuka. You are one of the few who die with my original technique." He made 3 signs with his hands, and then lowered his right hand, with the palm in the form of a claw. The chakra accumulated in his hand until it became visible. The sound of squeaking filled the air as electricity started shooting in random directions from his hand. Kidori 1,000 birds. He charged forward and held out his hand. However, 3 meters away, an ice mirror appeared, and the fake ninja hunter, now without a mask, emerged from the ice and stood in his way. Shit. I can't move now, he thought. Just when it looked like he was going to impale the young woman, a hand grabbed her arm. The surprise that someone stopped her, and she was apparently unaffected by the lightning, disabled the technique. That's enough, said a familiar voice. There was Naruto. He was still holding her by the arm as he watched the bridge. Near him was Mayuri, pointing his swords at the neck of Yugao, who was kneeling. They were both staring at him. Then, Naruto turned his gaze towards the other combat zone. Natsumi was on her knees with an astonished expression, and a hand extended forward. She could see two figures lying side by side near her. He sadly guessed that they were Yakumo and Sayuri. That's when applause was heard. Everyone turned towards the end of the bridge to see Gato standing with an army of thugs. Well, well, well. It seems that the devil was nothing but a word. It doesn't matter, I wasn't going to pay you anyway, he said. Cat. What are you doing? Shizuka shouted. Naruto told the others to come closer. Mayuri reluctantly lowered his swords and started walking towards him. Yugao was right behind her, shooting a withering glance at the redhead. Natsumi managed to create two clones. Each one took a different girl and brought them to Naruto. What do you think? Gato continued as if nothing had happened. You see, you shinobi are too expensive for my taste. So I thought I'd wait until they got tired, attack, kill the bridge builder and all the men, and take them as slaves. Now, the thugs that follow me are cheaper, but all together they cost me more than you, so be generous and kill some. The girls were shaking or growling at the arrogant dwarf. But before they did anything stupid, Naruto stood in front of them. You know, he began, it's easy to clean up a corpse like a vulture. What is it that you are? No, wait, that would be an insult to the vultures. At least they only eat dead meat. You, on the other hand, are much worse. I'm going to enjoy killing you. Cat chuckled, turned around, and went back to his boat. Make sure you make him suffer. As for the girls, you can keep the older ones. The men around him cheered and charged forward. Naruto bent down and picked up the handle of the bowl. Without saying anything, he charged at the bandit army. He ducked to dodge the first slash and gutted the man. Retreating, he bent back at the waist, dodging 3 spears. He grabbed them, boiled up, and threw them at their owners, impaling them, and 3 behind each. He cut the jugular of another, pierced the chest of another, and trampled a fallen enemy. As he continued, he noticed blood flowing towards the broken sword, and saw it pull itself together. When it was completely full, she started bisecting the bullies. The girls witnessed the massacre, without anyone forgiving them. If anyone looked, they would see Shizuka and Mayuri licking their lips. Finally, after the fall of the last bandit, Naruto stopped. He took one look at his artwork, and then turned to Gato. The short, fat bastard was cowering in fear, covered in blood. The terrified man turned his fearful gaze to Naruto upon hearing him approaching. For him, he didn't see Naruto, he saw the Grim Reaper, and the sword was the fearsome scythe. Peppy, please. Stop it. I'll give you whatever you want. Money. Power. Women. Any. Naruto interrupted him when he brandished the Kubikibicho and beheaded him. Silence floated back into the air, until it was broken by Natsumi, Sakura, and the revived girls, who ran to the side and vomited. He made a note to ask about the resurrection of Sayuri and Yakumo. Then, he picked up the cat's head and returned with the group. That's when the villagers appeared. Get out of our house. The villager who was saying this became silent, as did the others, when he saw the bodies, the blood and the viscera. Before they could run to the side and vomit, a splash caught their attention. The cat's head landed in front of them. They just stared and then started cheering. The ninja could only look on with a smile, while Naruto had a satisfied smile. 3 days later, everyone was gathered on the bridge, now completed. The villagers, with their cheers and thanks, turned to the shinobi. Natsumi and Yakumo were smiling proudly, Sayuri with a satisfied smile, Sai. It was Sai. Sakura revered Sayuri for having mocked death, and the Honen and Aku were also smiling slightly. Are you sure you can't stay longer? Tsunade asked. No, Naruto said, we've been delayed long enough. If we delay any longer, they will send a search team to a ninja hunter. Thanks for the offer. Tsunade nodded as the two groups tearfully said goodbye. After a while, they stopped at an intersection. I guess that's it, Shizuka said. We will return to Kiri. We'll probably join the rebels and all that. The two Konoha teams felt, although Natsumi was a little depressed about losing possible friends. Don't worry, Gaki boy, you'll see us again sooner than you think. And when we do, his tone turned a little sultry as Amayuri flashed a wicked smile. We'll get to know each other a lot better, Naruto-kun. Before anyone could react, the two swordswomen appeared on either side of him and hit him. A kiss. They immediately used Shunsin Body Blink to return to their group and left. There was an awkward silence in the air until Naruto turned to Konoha and departed, with everyone following him. What was that? Bara shouted, Natsumi asked. Yakumo had the same expression as Yugao, although it was not noticeable. It seems that I have earned his affection. How? I don't know for sure. If I had to bet, I'd say it was because of the time we spent together after the battle, because of my massacre on the bridge. Or because of both. But that's beside the point. We have to get back to the village as soon as possible. He pressed the pace knowing that, by not answering their questions completely, they would try to keep up with them. To continue with their pseudo-interrogation. Oh no, you're not getting out of this so easily. Come back and answer me, Natsumi said, furious. Seeing that he was ignoring her, she quickened her pace to keep up with him, like everyone else. If only because it was sure to be entertaining. Konoha, location office, the team achieved it in record time. As they informed the Okage, he couldn't help but think. That's Naruto-sensei. He sighed and turned to the teams. Congratulations on completing a rank quest. They all did just what was expected, which cannot be blamed on them, or they surpassed themselves. They faced an unknown threat and stood their ground where others would have fled. They will receive a salary equivalent to the increase of the mission. They will have the next month off to train, relax and reflect. Retired. A month later, Team 11 had used the month to hone their skills and develop new ones. At least, the girls did. Naruto was there to supervise and train them. The fight and the defeat to Amayuri had dealt a severe blow to Yugao's pride. I knew if Naruto hadn't stopped the fight, I'd be dead. So he used the month to improve his kenjutsu skills. The problem was to find someone who could push her relentlessly. The answer is Naruto. Flashback scene. Yugao and Naruto were on opposite sides of the designated arena. She had her katana drawn, but Naruto was still there. 5 minutes later, he asked, why don't you draw a sword? Naruto sighed at his impatience and took out a scroll. He glanced at it for a moment, and then despised the weapon he desired. It was a wooden hole. Then he put his right hand behind his back. A vein throbbed in her head at what she thought was a mockery. Fine. If that's how you want to play, then let's play. She shot out at high speed and tried to strike him in the side. He jumped up and gave her a blow on the hand, making her escape from his grip, leaving her unarmed. The sword fight started. It's not about who is faster or who has more power. It's a dance. A dance of the sword. And whoever stumbles first will die. Take your sword. We'll try again. He rubbed his wrist before obeying. They started again, she keeping at a considerable distance. How are you going to get better if you don't attack? It seems that the Uchiha have extended their influence, even from the grave. Before she could question what he meant, he took several steps forward, allowing her to try to hit him. He dodged it effortlessly and hit her again with the bokken. At a dance, you want to lead, not follow. By not taking the initiative, you let me lead, and I led you into my trap. Again. He decided to take her advice and lead the fight. She took 2 steps to the right, and he imitated her. She moved forward, he moved back. Everything she did, he imitated or followed. Having grown tired, he charged forward. He tried to cut, and she leaned to the side. She tried to push, and he deflected it. To an ordinary viewer, It looked like a fierce duel. But for Naruto, he was the same as in the beginning. "Come on," he said. "That can't be all there is to the famous Konoha Kenjutsu master." He dodged several punches as if nothing had happened. Or maybe yes. You make up for your lack of teaching with speed, hoping for a quick takedown. But what happens when you meet someone who equals or surpasses you? His punches started to gain speed, and yet he had stopped. He remained completely motionless, except for his left arm, which blocked or deflected the blows. "Now it's clear to me that you lack the right training for this. But it's not all your fault. No, at least half of it is from the one who taught you. Clearly, they didn't know what they were doing half the time, and like you, they relied on speed or strength to win the match." Yugao's punches became more clumsy as he continued, while she tried by all means to shut him up. "Don't even think about making fun of Kushina-senpai," he roared. He tried a strong downward blow. He dodged it, causing the katana to stick into the ground. He snorted as his mind cleared of anger. That's when he noticed the hole placed on his collarbone. Dead. It was a simple statement that meant the end of the round. He took a step back to give her more space. "You are obviously a passionate person. You care a lot about your loved ones and take pride in what you do. However, you can get carried away with your emotions, and often you do, and you carry things beyond what is necessary. Do not suppress your emotions, but do not let them dominate you. You fell for my teasing about who trained you and about your abilities. I suggest you meditate or do something to distract yourself. Painting, sculpting, cooking, gardening are all good tips. I swim myself. It shouldn't take you more than an hour, but that's all you need." Having said that, he sealed the hole and left. End of flashback. I had taken his advice and started learning to cook. This brought him many benefits. It helped her relax, she was able to prepare homemade meals for Ayat. And she wouldn't be completely clueless when they were stuck in the desert like last time. How was I supposed to know that stinging mushrooms were driving you crazy? She had turned to him several times to ask for suggestions about their form and their executions. And each time, he helped her improve to the point where she could defeat any swordsman in Inokuni, Tierra del Fuego, except Naruto. Naruto not only helped her, he also helped his two companions. As for Yakumo, he would take her for long walks and hikes around Konoha to strengthen her muscles. For his drawings, he placed a restriction stamp on it. This one forced him to try twice as hard to get normal results, so that, by taking it off, he could draw and react faster. He also faced Ido. He did not destroy it, but merged them with Yakumo on top. So now she has full access to her powers, and doesn't have to worry about them getting out of control. He really enjoyed his time with Natsumi. His cheerful attitude always made him see the world brighter. That didn't mean it was any less severe. To expand his knowledge and patience, I made him read a small encyclopedia. I would make her read, she would leave, she would come back after a while and summarize what she had read. He also taught her politics because he knew it was necessary in an office. It was exhausting for both of us. In addition, he had imposed a strict training regime on her and banned her from eating ramen for a month. She had begged him, prostrating herself before him, not to take away the ramen. He remained firm in his decision, which forced her not to speak to him for 3 days. But the results were noticeable. With more intense training and a more balanced diet, you could see how his muscles started to develop. She would not be corpulent, but she would have that stylized muscular constitution that showed definition without the prominent musculature. After the month was over, he invited her to eat ramen, but made her promise that he would only do it once or twice a week, unless it was a special occasion. Present there they were, waiting for their sensei. He arrived unusually late, and the girls began to worry. Naruto was leaning against a tree with his eyes closed, clicking his tongue every 10 seconds. What he was doing was sending sound waves with the minimum amount of chakra possible as a form of echolocation. She came up with this when the girls were complaining about how useless they were getting blinded by the fog in Nami. He figured if he ever got blinded, he needed a way to get around without tripping. He stopped when he saw his sensei approaching. He opened his eyes when he saw her arrive with papers. "Hello everyone," he said. "You're late, sensei," the two girls said. She laughed shyly and rubbed the back of her neck. "Yeah, I guess so. But there is a reason. I signed you up for Chunan's exams," he said while delivering the papers. "They will start in 2 days at the academy. He arrives at 8 o'clock a.m. See you later." Before they could ask him what Chunan's exams were, he left. Chunin exams. Naruto thought. What the hell is this all about? Unfortunately, your question will have to wait, as the girls were planning to spend time with Naruto. They clung to his arms and dragged him back to the village, while looking at each other with hatred. It was upon entering the village that a problem arose. The villagers had noticed them and began to look at Natsumi with hatred when the three returned, as they believed that the demon bitch was seducing the last Senju. Some were grateful that the last Uchiha was a woman so as not to get carried away by her charm. Naruto knew this was happening, as he had trained himself to use echolocation and had trained his ears to hear better. Long-distance training with Inuzuka during his father's reign. Her lips curled down. There was nothing I could do yet. I just needed some idiot to attack Natsumi so the civilians would get his point. It bothered him even more that civilians could get away with this behavior. Unfortunately, the civilians were wise enough not to attack Natsumi while he was around. He was interrupted by his thoughts about how things would change in the village when a jerk deflected him to the right. He looked at Natsumi and Yakumo and saw them looking straight ahead. Following his gaze, he saw a boy dressed as a cat and wearing makeup, holding a child by the back of the neck. Then he saw a pretty girl with 4 pigtails telling the feline-themed guy to let the boy go. "Wait, Tamari," Cadman said. "I need to teach this punk a lesson." He raised his fist and was about to attack when Natsumi and Yakumo lunged forward. "Hey!" Natsumi shouted, getting Kalman's attention. "You'd better let him go." "What? Or what?" said the masked big catman. To prove it, he tried to hit the boy when a stone flew out from among the trees and hit him in the face, forcing him to let go. He fled with his 2 friends, who were watching him anxiously. "Who the hell threw that away?" she screamed as she held her cheek. "I did it," a familiar voice said to Team 11. Everyone looked towards the nearby tree and saw Sayuri sitting there with an arrogant smile, bouncing a stone in her hand. "And now what are you going to do?" Cadman growled at him and picked up the wrapped bundle he was carrying on his back. "Kangaroo, are you using Crow?" "You know what will happen when he shows up," the blonde foreigner said. The now revealed Kanker turns to her. "Don't worry, Tamari, I'll finish before he shows up. I have to teach these tree huggers a lesson." However, he stopped when the area became filled with a slight thirst for blood. The girls staggered and opened their eyes like plates. They had an undeniable desire to turn around and run away. Naruto stood there, impassive, waiting for that mysterious person to appear. Kanker was the most affected, as it was aimed at him. "Kangaroo, shut up or I will kill you," said a female voice with a deep sound. Meanwhile, in Mizuno Kuni, a red-haired woman with green eyes, full lips, 4 bangs, long legs and considerable bust, wrapped in an off-the-shoulder dress, looked up. "Who is imitating me?" he asked without addressing anyone. "Back to the Hagia story," a trembling kangaroo said. Everyone looked towards the origin of the voice and saw a red-haired girl with an expressionless face and an indifferent look, standing face down on the branch of a tree next to Sayuri. He disappeared into a sunashin without a step of shimmering sand and appeared in front of the now named Kankuri Tamari. "Sorry if these 2 caused problems. We're leaving." He turned to leave with his now intimidated companions when, "Just a moment," Sayuri said. "Judging by their extra days, they are from Suna. And why are there foreign shinobi here?" This made the trio turn to look at her and raise flags for Natsumi, Yakumo, and Sakura. Naruto was still watching them. "Don't tell me you don't know," Tamari said. He sighed as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. "We are here for the Chunin exams. Teams from all nations are coming, so you'll see a lot more foreign shinobi." Sayuri and Sakura seemed confused at what he said, but his explanation made Team 11 take notice. So, Naruto thought, Chunin exams allow teams from different countries to come here. And, by the name, it is a test for those who want to become Chunin. I don't like this. There should be no reason for anyone to allow enemy ninjas, potential or real, to enter their village. What other stupid things have happened while I was gone? What's your name? Gi asked, pulling Naruto out of his thoughts. I am Sayori Uchiha, he said arrogantly. I'm Natsumi Uzumaki. And I am Yakumo Kurama, and we are the female members of Team 11, they both said at the same time. Not you, Gi said, making the girls hesitate. He ended up pointing at Naruto. Seeing little harm, he replied. Naruto Senju, he said without moving from his posture. Gaia perked up upon hearing the name, while her companions became a little concerned with her proclamation. If he really was a Senju, there was a possibility that he had a way to stop a Biju. Gaia nodded and motioned for her companions to follow him. After they left, Sayori said and left. Sakura followed her, and Natsumi and Yakumo continued on with their day, while Naruto was dragged along by both of them. 2 days later, Team 11 had entered the second floor of the academy. They were greeted by a large number of would-be Chunin trying to enter a room marked with the number 301. They were stopped by a couple of older Chunin. Naruto arched an eyebrow as he sighed to himself. The level has definitely dropped if they can't spot a simple genjutsu. He placed his hands on the shoulders of his companions and guided them to overcome the trap. As he entered the room, a large kilo whipped. Natsumi and Yakumo turned a little pale, but otherwise they were fine, while Naruto was completely impassive again. Seeing his indifferent face caused several teams to increase their ki, until Naruto responded with 5% of his. This made everyone, except his companions, imagine himself dying in a terrible way. Hands of him. At least half the room was vomiting and choking. Only the most experienced managed to keep their composure. He scoffed and relented. After that, no one wanted to get close to his team, and more importantly, to him. The door opened again, and all the contestants from the floor below entered. Naruto sighed again, knowing that someone had revealed it to him. Shortly after, Team 7 arrived. Sayori was a little beaten up, but she still had an arrogant smile. They noticed that everyone was a little nervous and assumed that it was because they had arrived. Except Saa. While the Konoha rookie teams were approaching and making a lot of noise, Naruto noticed a silver-haired genin approaching. Hey, he shouted, you should tone it down. A lot of people here are already nervous, and they don't want to be paid attention to. His comment made them stop the conversation and take a look around the room. Most of the newbies steered clear of the killer instinct, while the more experienced ones managed to keep their composure. Oh yeah? And who the hell are you? Kiba asked the silver-haired genin. Excuse me, he said. My name is Kabuto, and I am what you could call an expert in these exams. This will be my 7th attempt. While the newbies made fun of him or gave him pity, Naruto devoted all his attention to him. I would say that the reason for so many attempts is the difficulty of the exams. But, from what I've seen of today's ninja, that's a lie. So either he's weaker than normal or he has a second goal. Well, at least I learned something from my failures, Kabuto said. He reached into a separate kune bag and pulled out a wad of cards. These are my letters of information. They contain the statistics of everyone in this room, including you. This caught the attention of Sayori, who turned to him. All of them, you say? He asked. Kabuto nodded with an almost imperceptible mocking smile that only Naruto caught. Tell me about Konoha's Rogel, Tsunade's Gia, and Konoha's Naruto Senju. His proclamation, which he had made sure sounded loud enough for everyone to hear, had attracted attention. Many started whispering about whether he was a Senju, and if so, that they should let Suhani know. Oh, Kabuto said with a feigned pout, you know their names. That takes all the fun out of it. He took out the first card, and turned it a little while channeling chakra. Well, first there's Rogel de la Hoya. He says that his companions are Tenten Energier and Yuga. They have completed 46 D rank, 10 C rank, and 1 B rank missions. He has a disability that prevents him from using chakra, but he more than makes up for it with his skill in taijutsu. In short, keep your distance. Next up is Tsuna's Gia. His teammates are his brothers, Kanker the Puppeteer and Tamari, the Lady of the Wind. They have completed 20 D ranks, 15 C ranks, and 2B ranks. Check this out, he says he has never received a scratch on these missions. Unfortunately, I have no information about his abilities. Approach with caution. This made many genin distrustful of Gia, who remained impassive. The last one is Naruto Senhu, also known as the Last Senhu. His classmates are Natsumi Uzumaki and Yakumo Kurama. They have completed 15 missions of rank F and 1 of rank K. He only massacred more than 400 bandits when he broke into the Gato de Gato Industries mansion. And the now called Great Naruto Bridge, and besides he didn't get a scratch. Suman. He stopped when the card disappeared from his hand. Everyone looked for her, only to find Naruto with the card in his hand. Without blinking, he tore the card into pieces and scattered them. "Were you saying?" he asked. Kabuto let out a nervous giggle. But before he could respond, a column of smoke rose up next to the blackboard. Everyone, once again, turned to see about 20 Chunin, and who they assumed was the exam proctor. He was an intimidating man, 1.90 m, who surpassed almost everyone present. He was wearing a black scarf, military boots, a long trench coat, black trousers, and a dark gray jacket under the trench coat. "Well, sit down and shut up. The first exam has started." The Chunin wannabes, already frightened by Naruto, quickly obeyed. "Well, listen up, because I'm only going to say it once. My name is Iviki Morino, and I am your supervisor. The first exam is written. There are 10 questions, although the final exam has only 9. I'll talk about that in a moment. There is a point system, 10 questions, 10 points. If you make a mistake on a question, you will be deducted 1 point. Cheating is not allowed. Every time you get caught, 2 points will be deducted. If you get caught 5 times, you and your team are out." A lot of people started protesting about this. I said shut up. He shouted, silencing all protests. As many have just asked, this is a team effort. That means if one fails, they all fail. Do you understand? And if one can't answer a single question, they're all out. We have highly trained Chunins watching them on the ramparts, so we'll know if they're cheating. Now, for starters, the room was filled with the rustling of the paper as the contestants turned over their papers. Then, it was filled with the sound of scribbling. Naruto was sitting there with a finished sheet, deep in his thoughts. How strange. What does the points system mean? These questions are quite difficult for today's genin, so most can't even aspire to answer them correctly. But what he said about cheating is wrong. In any case, if you get caught cheating, it's over. So why give us so many opportunities? Unless he wants us to cheat. That's his game. He wants to see if we can cheat without getting caught. Coming out of his thoughts, he looked around and saw that the others had already found out and were cheating in their own way. He turned to his companions to see how they were getting on. Yakumo seemed fine. He had used one of his realistic genjutsu to hide that he had approached someone who had finished and exchanged his papers. But Natsumi was having a hard time. She seemed to be having a hard time. I knew he would do it as soon as it was revealed that the exam was written. He had shown amazing intelligence on the battlefield, but outside of that, his mentality was below average. He sighed as he got up, walked over to her, they exchanged their papers, and sat down again. Everyone looked at him. That can only be considered cheating, once for me and once for her. He quickly responded to the blade as Natsumi beamed at him. No one else can do that, Iviki shouted, stopping the teams that were starting to get up. As time passed, the Chunin started calling Genin Salazar by numbers to get them to leave. By the time the exam was almost over, there was still a quarter left. Pencils down, Iviki said. Okay, time for the final question. But there are more rules. The first is that you have the choice to ask the final question or not. However, if you decide not to do it, you automatically suspend. The room erupted in angry screams at the nonsense he was saying. He unleashed a bit of his ki to calm everyone down. They wouldn't let me finish. If they decide to answer the question and fail, they will never be able to become Chunin. The room erupted into chaos again. They were screaming that I couldn't do it. Naruto remained sitting there the whole time with an complicit smile. I can and I will be able to do it. I even received permission from their respective cages. The room fell silent. One by one, several genin raised their hands. The teams were going left and right. Naruto was content to see how long this would last, until he noticed out of the corner of his eye that Natsumi was raising her hand. Slowly and hesitantly, but firmly. He turned to her and caught her gaze. He